Hello, everybody. Hello, Raimo. Greetings to you, too. I hope everybody had a good 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the last one. 89. This is number 89. Woohoo! Creeping up on 100. We'll have to have some sort of Trumpet Q and A party when we get to 100, right? We'll have to have a Q and A party of some sort. I don't know what kind of party we could have, but we can put our imagination muscles into it, huh? So 89, that's we're 11 away from number 100. So looking forward to it. All right, so let's see, what do you guys want to know? What do we want to talk about today? Anybody want to start asking questions? I started a new student today. That's always very exciting for me. It's a little bit, the new students, because of my teaching style, it's very hard to start a new student because I don't know anything about the person. And it's not like, so I do have a method. Let's be clear about that. I do have a method. But that method is not, it's not a plug and play method. It's just the method itself is based on my experience as a player, as a teacher. I've been teaching since 1980. And yeah, that's a long time, isn't it? And, what I have as a method is after we do this, it makes sense to go here. And after you do that, it makes sense to go here. But if you don't know the student yet, if you don't have a full grasp of where the student is at and more importantly, by the way, what the student wants to accomplish. That's just, that's, when I say hard, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I actually enjoy the challenge. I enjoy working with new students and trying to get all that, figure out the ins and outs of what we're going to be doing. I can tell you this, that I teach every student differently. These are not cookie cutter lessons. I would love to teach cookie cutter lessons. I would love that. And in fact, I have considered for students that, making an official package for students that aren't looking for something specific and just want to do my method. Because as I get older, I actually have enough of these. This comes after this, comes after that, comes after that. I have enough of that now to keep people going for a long time. So, but yeah, each student that comes in, each individual student that comes in is actually a great opportunity for me to, for one thing, create more content, right? More, when I say content, more material for the students to practice. And that's what we're doing with this new student, because what he wants is very specific. And yeah, I'm going to write some material to meet his specific needs. And of course, also, that's how this works, right? What I write for my individual students eventually becomes a part of my method, right? So yeah, that's always a good thing. So anyway, who's got a question for me? No questions. All right. What can I tell you about? Well, last week we didn't have a Q and A because we were out of town doing research on a new composition, and it's something that I've done before. So, like, examples of me doing this before include, hello, neocolors. Examples of me doing this before are my trumpet quartet called Hogsback Heaven. I've done that before with Hogsback Heaven. I've done it with what's it called? Hopewell Suite. And there's some others too. I can't remember offhand. There's one called Texas. So what I do is I go to a place and I soak up the feel of that place and I write music while I'm there. And actually, to be very specific, I don't actually write the music. I write what I call inspirations, which are basically musical ideas. Raimo asks, which system do I use in remote lessons? I've been using Skype. And I guess it's just a matter of just being used to it. I have not even tried the other ones. But yes, I use Skype. I like Skype, but maybe the reason I like it is because I've been using it. You know, I've only had trouble with Skype with one student, and that was a student who, and he's still a student now. He hasn't quit, but he comes to the house now. He's been taking lessons with me for years. But when COVID broke out, everyone had to go to Skype lessons. And so we started him on Skype, and he had a different version of Skype that was for business. And I couldn't find a way to make the lesson itself was fine, but there's things that I use in the Skype program, like sharing screen. That's the most important one. I can share the screen so that I can put the music on the screen. You play the music that I put on the screen. And for some reason, with his version of Skype, we couldn't do that. Raimo says, I like Meet, which is Gmail based. You know, I really should give these things a try, so that I'm not ignorant. I don't like to be ignorant, right? I don't like to be ignorant. So that's why I said it that way. There's a lot of people who are afraid to admit that they don't know something. And that's especially true in this world today, where everything is about convincing everybody and getting everybody's attention and all that stuff. You know, I never played that game. And so I'm not afraid to tell people that, hey, and I've done it before on these Q and A sessions, right? I've done it on these Q and A sessions where someone will ask a question and I don't know anything about that, and I'll say, hey, I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to pretend I know everything about everything. And the reason people do this is so that you'll be impressed with them and trust them, and you know. Raimo, I'll take you up on that offer, right? When Raimo says, okay, I'm ready to test meat any day. Okay, well, we'll have a test meat session. Jim Caulfield says, I can't decide which of my 5 mouthpieces to use. Let us know what mouthpieces you've got, and we'll talk through that. Cardo says, thanks for the videos, Eddie. You're welcome. I'm enjoying making the videos. I'm gonna make another one today. I kind of took a break from making the trumpet videos for a while. I don't know if you've noticed that we were doing for almost a year at least 5 videos a week. But part of that was because we had so much material to get up onto the, because a lot of this stuff is when I put the score videos up, when I put the live videos of me playing, all of that is for advertising purposes. And I don't mean by putting it up I'll sell music. I put the music up so that people who are looking for a trumpet quartet, let's say on Sheet Music Plus or on my website, they get to hear what the music sounds like. That's why I had 2 reasons for starting my YouTube channel. The first reason was to upload examples for my students. The second reason was for having demos of my compositions. And those 2 reasons have not gone away. I'm still putting stuff up for my students. Sometimes the stuff I put up for my students is not public, but I still use this platform for putting stuff up for my students. And then I still put a lot of compositions up for for the demo recordings. But I did slow down. I slowed down putting up the educational videos, and I slowed down putting up the trumpet videos, the ones where I'm playing, because we've gotten all the compositions up now. The only ones I'll be adding up now at this point. Well, okay, I take that back. We haven't done the brass stuff yet, and I've got a bunch of brass stuff. I just don't like putting up live recordings. Not live recordings, I'm sorry. Hello, Gabriel, nice to see you. I don't like to put the computer stuff up. So my son has been making computer score videos, but they're not public. You can only see them if you're looking at the composition that's up. So that's his job right now, is putting that stuff up. Okay. So it's not like we're not putting any videos up. But anyway, what I'm saying is I've got a new series that I'm coming out with on the educational side. We're going to talk about, and in about 10 different videos, we're going to talk about the comeback player. So like people who played a long time ago and they put the horn away and now they're back again. We're going to talk about those students specifically. So Jim, please, if you have the time, please type into the chat and tell us what mouthpieces you've got so that we can talk about which ones are or be more clear about what you're talking about, right? Because or I guess not clear, but be more specific, and we can dig into that a little bit. That's a good topic right there. Well, they're all good topics. I shouldn't say it like that. They're all good topics. Raimo says, I am also circling 5 mouthpieces. What confuses me, one day this mouthpiece works okay, the other day is some other, which okay. That's why the best way to try them is 2 weeks at a time. Gabriel says, that's the same for me, but as Arturo says, it's not the arrow, it's the Indian. I think I've heard him say that before. Okay, Jim says he's got a Bach 3C, a 7C, a Calet 1 SB, Now the Calit numbers I'm not familiar with. A King and a Yamaha 11. So the 7C is going to be smaller than the rest of those, I think. Maybe the 11 and the 7C might be sort of close to the same. So let me know what's. Let's see here. Twin Pyramid says, "What's up, Mr. Lewis? You might not remember me, but you taught me back in the day." So I don't remember teaching someone called Twin Pyramid. So let me see. I can't actually see your. I see you have a picture on there, but I can't see you on there. If you feel comfortable sharing your name, Summer Jazz Workshop. Woo! Yeah, back at the Summer Jazz Workshop. That was a long time ago. Yeah. So yeah, we had a bunch of students there, so I might not remember you, but there's a chance I do remember you. Sean, oh, of course I remember you, Sean. Of course I remember you. Yeah. All right, so let's explore this mouthpiece thing. First thing I would say is, like I said to Raimo, try. Now, before I go into this, okay, I believe you should be very organized with this stuff. I think you should take notes. When I chose my mouthpiece size, I had uh, a lot of. I took a lot of notes on each mouthpiece. I even went as far as to put the mouthpiece. Now, with your different sizes, you might not be able to do this, right? Because I mean, not different sizes, different brands. Because it's obvious a King looks different from a Yamaha, looks different from the Buck, right? But what I did is all mine were from the same company, and I would put them in a way that I couldn't see the size. And I would just grab, and I shuffled them, by the way. And I had mouthpiece A, mouthpiece B, mouthpiece C, mouthpiece D, like that. I don't want to know the size because there's something that happens mentally. So if you know the size, you're not being impartial. So that's one thing. The mental part of it can be tricky. You want to make sure you don't know what it is you're playing when you're playing it. And like I said, that's a little difficult with different brands. But if you're really looking for different size mouthpieces, you want to strive to not pay attention to what it is and just call it mouthpiece A after you've shuffled them. And what I had was a stack of paper underneath each mouthpiece, and I would play and write down notes about that mouthpiece. Now we want to do that ideally for 2 weeks. I'm not telling you that I did 2 weeks, right? That's what we should do is 2 weeks, okay? And write down notes. Write down every kind of note that you think is applicable to that that mouthpiece, right? So tell yourself in the note what the sound was like. Did you have trouble articulating, tonguing? Did you have, did it help or hurt your flexibility? Did it make you more tired? Not that being tired is a reason to not use the mouthpiece or use the mouthpiece, but it's worth writing down. Does that make sense? So that's the main thing, is to be, first of all, objective about it. Our minds are very silly things. And our minds are strange, and our hearts and our emotions are even worse. Okay? And so when it comes to stuff like this, the best thing to do is to take your feelings out of it. Be clinical. All that stuff you learned about science in school, about being objective, about being, um, you know, recording your observations, all of that stuff. You want to act that way when it's time to figure out which mouthpiece is best for you. Okay. So Raimo says he has 3C, 5C, and 7C. Oh, actually, he's asking if that's for C trumpet. Okay, C trumpet. Okay, you're remembering what I said last week, 2 weeks ago. The C on the sides for the Bach mouthpieces. The name for that. This might be urban legend, but this is how I remember it. Okay. C was there for that C on that meant it was designed for C trumpet. When it didn't have any letter on it at all, it was implied to be a B, meant for B flat trumpet. A D meant that it was designed for D trumpet. Okay? Now, that convention is still in place, but that's not the function of how it works anymore. Okay? So we could sort of say that those are legacy sizes. Sizes left over from the old days. Okay? Because, yes, to answer your question, we used what used to be designed for a C trumpet, we use that now on the B flat trumpet. Okay? So that's, to answer your question, that's what that is. And I think you're just asking for confirmation because we talked about that last time. Javier, hello, Javier, nice to see you. He says, hello, Eddie, good to see you. I can't watch it live today. Just came to say hello, and you and the rest of the Trumpet God not worshippers. Well, howdy, nice to see you. Well, we'll see you when you come back. We won't be here, but you'll yeah, Jim says the 7C sounds good to me, but the color SB allows me to play higher notes. Okay, I would be careful about the range stuff. Okay, so we don't. When I can only tell you how I do this, right? When I'm picking a mouthpiece, I don't care about the range. Because getting the mouthpiece, now, it's possible that the color SB, that the S stands for shallow. And so shallow cups, to me, a shallow cup it emphasizes the higher harmonics, right? It gives you, in other words, it gives you a brighter sound. Well, brighter sound sounds better in the upper register. So it's not about getting the high notes. And the chances are that the rim size is a different size from the Calet mouthpiece to the 7C. So your situation is a little bit complicated because you're not playing on the same rim, you're not playing on the same brand, you're not playing on the, so it's very complicated because maybe you need something that's the same depth of cup as the Calet, or maybe maybe you see what I'm saying? Right now you have different components and different mouthpieces that that perhaps need to be blended together into one mouthpiece. I guess that's what I'm saying. But that's why we do what I'm talking about. Once you have these 5 mouthpieces recorded, write down everything that you can figure out about these mouthpieces. Then you can look at what you wrote and use logic to figure out what your next mouthpiece purchase should be based on what's there. Now, a good exercise would be after all of this is over, after you've gotten everything cataloged, is go to the different websites and see what the qualities of those mouthpieces are and how they compare to each other. That's also very important. Anthony says, hey, hi, Eddie. I didn't know you were on. Hello, everybody. Hello. Yes, we're on. We're back. Sean says, in marching band, they treated the Shilky 13A4A like magic whistle. So that's actually not, I think there's only one letter wrong in Shilky. I think it's SCH. But other than that, it was correct. You know, there's nothing wrong with the 13A4A. It comes down to using the right tool for the right job, right? So if I remember right, Sean, I think you went to now I'm forgetting the name of the high school. There where we had the workshop on McCurd Road. I can't remember the McCard Road. I can't remember the name of the school. Willowbrook. Willowbrook. Is that correct? Or were you one of the ones coming in from out? That was Willow Ridge. That's right, Willow Ridge. What an awesome band, huh? And not just the marching band. That was an awesome band. I miss the band director. It was very, very sad for me to hear that he passed away. I really, really liked what you guys had going on down there. That you were part of something very, very special down there. Oh, and PVA too. Okay, so yeah. Cardo says, Eddie, in one video you talk about people who supposedly had their teeth worked out by dentists in order to look and play like Faddis. That's absolutely true. I had a friend who did exactly that. Okay, well, so now we have confirmation. Remember I told you in the video, I said I wasn't sure. That might just be urban legend. But there you go. Now we have at least, secondhand information, which is better than just legend, right? Gabriel says, this thing about the C explains to me a lot of things. I've always chosen a B cup while I feel the C cup is a dull sound. Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Hello, Gary. Nice to see you again. Have you heard, this is Gary, he says, have you heard the term cheater mouthpiece, and do you recommend these if you need or want to play extremely high? I absolutely do not recommend it for playing high. Yes, I know what they are. And I'm just not, no, I don't recommend it. So here's the thing, right? I play on a cheater mouthpiece, right? So I always have 3 mouthpieces. And ever since 1990, I've had 3 mouthpieces always in my bag, and I use the different mouthpieces for different kinds of playing. And what I base that on is how loud is the band, not how high the music is. It just happens that the louder the band is, normally the higher we have to play. So it just coincidentally happens that when I'm playing higher, I tend to play this other mouthpiece. But I can play the same range on every mouthpiece. Every mouthpiece that's my diameter. If I have to play on a smaller diameter, I can't play, and it's because of my teeth. But to me, that's not a cheater mouthpiece. You know what's funny about COVID-19 is I haven't played a gig where I used those notes in over a year now. The only time I've played above high C is to demonstrate to students or whatever. So I'm going to grab my deepest mouthpiece, which is not supposed to be good for playing high. This mouthpiece is so deep, it's about as deep as a French horn mouthpiece. So if I put my finger in here, it goes in that far. Okay? All the way up to the end of my fingernail, right? And I have not practiced today. So this is without warming up. And I'm going to play a C arpeggio. I'm going to go up to double C, super C, whatever you want to call that. Some people actually call it triple C. I don't know why they call that triple C, but there's no consensus on what the nomenclature is. So that's a super C. Cold, no warm up, on my biggest mouthpiece. So it's not about getting the high notes. The mouthpiece doesn't make you get the high notes. Here's what the mouthpiece can do is make you not get the high notes. There are mouthpieces that can make it more difficult for you to play the high notes. I know on the surface, in terms of logic, that sounds like stupidity. But if you're playing a mouthpiece that is close to your size, you should be able to play your whole range on no matter how deep the mouthpiece is. That's what I'm trying to say. But if you're playing on a mouthpiece that has a weird rim or a weird diameter, something like that like for me hits on those corners on my teeth, I can't play high on that. So it's not that that there's a scale of better or worse for high notes. It's just that there are some mouthpieces that will like hit your little Achilles tendon, so to speak, right? It's like your Achilles tendon, and you know, hit that tendon and the whole thing breaks down, right? Now, this mouthpiece is my shallowest mouthpiece, right? It's less than half the depth of my other mouthpiece. Same arpeggio, and it just sounds different. It's going to sound better in the upper register. Can you hear how clear that is? On the other mouthpiece, that top note didn't sound as clean. Okay? It didn't sound as clean. It sounded more muffled on those notes. But here's the thing. When I'm playing with a small group, I told you earlier that I choose the mouthpiece based on how loud the ensemble is. So if I'm playing in a intimate setting, in a combo set, so that, as an example, playing in a jazz combo, That, and to me, what I'm looking at most of the time is the is the bass an electric bass or is it upright? If I'm playing with an upright bass and an acoustic piano, I'll use the deepest mouthpiece, right? So if I'm playing that tune with a nice, beautiful sounding string bass, right, I might play up to those notes on this mouthpiece. Right, and I'm not. That wasn't quite up to super C, but I'm just demonstrating to you that I might actually do that in that setting, and I'm not going to put the shallow mouthpiece in just because I'm going to now play high notes. Okay, I hope that makes sense. By the way, that's one of my favorite mellow tunes. I think it's called My Buddy. The first time I heard that tune, I had a LP of, I want to say, Eddie Harris. I always get Eddie Harris and Eddie Henderson mixed up. Just not just because they have Eddie and H in the name. So anyway, Javier says, okay, one question maybe. Do you think there is too much difference between 17.3 millimeter and 17.5 millimeter? That really depends on you, right? For me, the 17.3 gets too close to these angles. Because I've told you guys this before, I have three, it's actually this way, but I have three sharp points on my teeth, and I have to get the mouthpiece around those 3 points. And the 17.3 millimeter is just a little too close for comfort. Okay? It's just a little bit too close. I can still play on it, but I'm extremely uncomfortable because it starts to hurt. And not that I have anything against pain, right? I've actually got a high threshold for pain, and I actually believe pain is an important part of life. But it makes no sense to make that your home base for a mouthpiece. So I do believe that this is a very, very personal thing. I hope that makes sense. Okay, Cardo says, obviously it didn't work at all and he had to go back to this dentist to have him fix it. Oh my, he should have had lessons with me. I would have straightened him out before he did such a horrible thing. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Oh, that's just nuts, isn't it? Gabriel says, Eddie, I've read today on a forum about sighing when exhaling. Can it be useful? Sighing. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. As in, so I've heard people say yawning, right? So the guy that taught me this, we don't get along much. But I learned a lot from him, whether he liked me or not. And the only reason I don't list him all the time on my resumes is because I'm pretty certain he doesn't like me. So, but he's the one that taught me this The whole thing about breathing as if you're yawning, right? If that's what you're talking about, I think that's a great thing. It's a great way to open everything up when you breathe. Sean says, I had dental work, but it was from an accident. Wow. But learning to replay was a bit difficult after training my embouchure many years. That's right. You know, a lot of people, now I haven't done this, but a lot of people will tell you that you should have a dental casting, I think it's called, when you get a mold done, and then if something ever happens to your teeth, they can reconstruct it. They can put everything back the way it was. But if they don't have this molding, they won't know what to do with it. I'm not so dedicated to trumpet that I will do that. I hope that makes sense. Trumpet is not my God. I know we've talked about that before. I would just relearn how to play again. So, man, that's tough, Sean. I know how hard that is. I mean, not personally. I've talked to people who went through that. It's not a nice thing. Gabriel says that Super C is the confirmation of the Indian and the arrow. Yeah. You really do have to be able to play. And the equipment really, now don't get me wrong, the equipment is important. Because you can have the wrong equipment. Okay? It is possible to have the wrong equipment. Gary says, thank you. That answers my question. Really awesome. You're welcome. Cardo says, wow, Super C on a deep mouthpiece. Yeah. So, you know, my first Super C was in 1989. And it was, well, let me put it this way. Not my first Super C, my first public Super C. I had a gig at Sugarland Baptist Church. They don't have music there anymore like they used to. But I used to play at Sugarland Baptist Church. And they had a little Dixieland thing in the orchestra, and the very last note, the leader told me, please take it back, please take that note up an octave if you can, and it was a high C. And we played that show like, I think it was 10 times that we played that show, and I never missed that note. And that's when people started thinking that I was a high note player. So, all right. Raimo says, please show those mouthpieces side by side on level. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. That's a good idea. Just to demonstrate just how deep this mouthpiece is, look how much shorter it is compared to the other mouthpieces. It is a trumpet mouthpiece. But when you read the literature about this mouthpiece, it says that the mouthpiece was so deep it made the instrument flat. So to compensate for the pitch, they shortened the shank so that the mouthpiece would play in tune. So I'll give you another view. Now this is a Shelkie, and that's a Shelkie, and that's a Warburton. The size on this is Shelkie F1. That's the deep one. Okay. And then the Shelkie M1. The M1 is from their symphonic series. I think also this one's from their symphonic series. And you notice that it doesn't look like a Shelkie, right? I have suspicions that they got tired of people, because there are some band directors that don't like Shelkie mouthpieces because they're not Bach. These look more like Bach mouthpieces. So I think that's what one of the things they did with the design of the the design of the symphony series. And then this mouthpiece is a Warburton 2 SV. Now, I played on 2 SV a long time ago. I wanted to see what it was like again. I played on a 2 SV for about 15 years, maybe 11 years, something like that. It was more than 10 years. This time I got a KT Star backbore. So those are the mouthpieces. That's what I play on. All right. Sean says, I have a nicer smile now. There you go. And the ladies dig it. That's great. Cardo says, Eddie, I did overplay in the last couple of days trying to work on my range. However, I'm afraid to take one day off. What's your advice? So first of all, let's talk about my approach to range. I do not believe that range is like weightlifting. And I think that's the biggest logical mistake that people make when they try to increase their range. They think it's about getting stronger, and it's not about getting stronger. The strength happens far sooner than the familiarity does. It's familiarity that plays the high notes, not strength. Okay? It's familiarity. What happens is, as we go higher, everything gets smaller. Okay? The aperture gets smaller. The teeth come closer and closer together. The tongue comes up higher. Tongue comes up higher in the mouth. Everything that we're doing, the whole system itself shrinks. But here's the thing: how much it shrinks is gradually more subtle as we go higher. And that presents certain physical problems. Okay? This problem of getting the everything getting smaller in smaller and smaller increments means that it's impossible to play high notes with your conscious mind. You can't do it. The way you learn to play high notes is by spending time on the notes that are just beneath the high notes. It's a matter of becoming more familiar with that part of the trumpet. So in that context, I would say you can take all the time off you want to take off. Okay? It's not a muscular thing. It's a control thing. Let me say this a different way now. The higher you go on the trumpet, the more subtle the control has to be. Not more powerful, more subtle. So when we go from C to E, when we go from C to E in the staff, the movement that it takes to go from C to E on the staff is like this much movement. Okay? When we do the octave above that, it's half of that. The octave above that is even half of that. Okay, so we're talking about how much movement, we're talking about the size of the oral cavity. It's not that it's just smaller. The increments by which it becomes smaller become more subtle. And so subtle that we can't perceive the difference with our conscious mind. That's my take on this. I think later, as we get better and better at the feel, we can feel certain things. But my problem with approaching it that way is that that feel, you can't measure that. You don't even really know what that feel is measured, what you're feeling. You can sense. You know, the example that I use, you remember when you were a kid and you lost a tooth? And you put your tongue in that hole where the tooth is, and it feels like the Grand Canyon, right? But you look at the tooth and it's just a tiny little thing. But when you put your tongue in that hole, it's huge, right? Our sense of understanding, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Our minds are we can't trust our minds. This is part of the problem I have with society today. And it goes back to humility, right? When you think you know stuff, that's when things start getting dangerous. And that applies to Trumpet just as much as it applies outside of Trumpet, right? We have to assume that what you're feeling in your mouth is not what you think it is. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you go higher, working on your range, and here's the problem with approaching it as strength. Because if you think that it's strength that's going to get you those top notes, I just told you, right? I told you that I haven't played the Super C stuff except for doing what I just did all year. It's been since COVID shut down. And probably before that even, because not all my gigs, it's not appropriate to play Super C on every gig, right? So it's probably been at least 15 months since I've played Super C like on a regular basis. If this was about muscles, then I shouldn't be able to do that. I haven't practiced. I quit practicing Super C in 1995, 96, somewhere around there. I don't like practicing those notes. So the only time I ever get to play those notes is when I'm in a performance. Okay? And so yes, it's so I got off track, right? So when you approach it as a muscular thing, where you have to be stronger to get the higher notes, what often happens is that you overshoot that aperture size instead of just gradually bringing the aperture size in. You go from here to here, right? You clamp down on the note and nothing comes out. So what has to happen as you get higher and higher is that you have to learn how to keep all of that open. And how to do that, it's almost not possible, right? And that's why we have to rely on the subconscious process. Okay? All right, anyway, I think I covered all that. So let's see here. I hope that answers your question. I rest a lot. I take a lot of time off. And then I have times when I don't. I have times where I practice like a madman, and then I have times when I don't practice like a madman. My range in the midst of all of that has only ever gone up. I'm playing Super C for you cold. That's not even my highest range. Right? And I haven't practiced those notes in over a year. I mean, I haven't practiced those notes since 1996, but I haven't played those notes regularly in over a year. So I hope that's proof that what I'm saying is true. Gabriel says, would you suggest to practice on a chair or better standing up? I really think that depends on what you're going to do in public. If you have to do both, then I would suggest both. I do both because I have to do both. That's my stance on that. I do think there are some benefits to standing up. So if you only ever sit down in your performances, then standing up sometimes for those benefits is good. I don't think it works the other way around. I don't think sitting down has any benefits, but standing up has benefits. So that's my stance on that. But primarily what we're looking for is to do what you do in performance. But Imo says, the measure which goes inside the lead pipe, which was the first you played. So the gap should be the same on all three mouthpieces. I don't know how to measure gap. That's not one of those things I've ever been interested in. And maybe the only reason I've not been interested in is because I've never had a problem with it. I do know that there are gap problems, but in theory, the mouthpiece should be the same. This is one of those subjects where I should tell people that I'm probably ignorant because I don't know for sure that they're all the same gap. I don't know that. Okay. So Sean says, hello, Sean Burton. I still owe you some emails. I apologize. He says to read the One Range book. And I think he's responding to Cardo, or maybe not. So he's talking. So the concepts that I teach for developing range are in the One Range book. I think that's why he's bringing it up. So if you look at the One Range book, that tells you how to use the theories that I'm sharing with you here, how to use those theories and put them into practice. It's got an actual play-by-play plan that you can use to develop your range. Now, I will tell you and warn you off at the very start, it's not a quick approach. This is not what you want. You know, there's some books out there that says Super C in 2 weeks or whatever. That's not what this is. This is a strategy for changing your practice habits so that you always grow your range. Sean says, this is Sean McGinty. My range increased practicing finding my notes below F sharp. Yeah, so the pedal tones are known for that. My theory about that. So talking about what we're talking about with that, as you go lower, the notes get more subtle. The changes that we do to make the notes change become more subtle. My theory about the low notes is that when you incorporate those lowest notes into your practice, you're getting a more exaggerated experience in terms of this pattern from big to small. Because when you go to those lowest notes, that size change is so tremendously exaggerated. Going from middle notes to those low pedals, you're going from here to here, right? It's huge. And I think that's, so playing those low no notes is sort of like when you first started writing in kindergarten and they gave you that big fat pencil to write with. It's sort of like that. You're using bigger material to learn how life works. Okay? Gabriel says, one range book, it will open your mind. Oh, read one range book, it will open your mind. Sean Burton says, someone said, should I practice every day? So I don't believe in practicing every day. I'm very outspoken about, here's the thing. Because people get upset when I say if you practice every day, you might be a trumpet worshiper. But I need to explain that when I say it, because I don't like pissing people off. I don't do it just for fun. Some things can't be helped though, but I don't do it on purpose. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by when I say that if you practice every day, you might be a trumpet worshiper. What I mean is that in life, we have responsibilities. All of us do. We have, and I teach what I call wholesome musical priorities, where our religious belief or our faith or whatever you want to call it should be at the top. Our health should be second. Our family should be third. Our job, or if you go to school as a student, your school should be next, and music should only come after all of that. I firmly believe that. The reason I teach that is because I believe that makes you a better trumpet player. When you live according to those, I'm losing my voice again. I had lessons today before this. So I've been talking all this time. I'm about to lose my voice. I apologize. So anyway, I believe that when you live your life that way, it makes you a better trumpet player. If you practice every day, that means, now, here, let me also say this first. A lot of the people who say you should practice every day don't. So a lot of people who say you should practice every day are actually not trumpet worshipers. They're just furthering a myth that has been taught to them. Okay? But I promise you, a lot of those people who say you should practice every day most of them did not take their trumpet on their honeymoon. Most of them did not choose to let their teeth rot so that they wouldn't go to the dentist. Because if you go to the dentist, I mean, it's stupid to play your trumpet after you go to the dentist. Now, if you're one of those who does play after you go to the dentist because you have to practice trumpet every day, you might be a trumpet worshiper. Right? So, and here's the thing, because there are so many people who are trumpet worshipers, and I'm not saying the majority of them are, but there are enough that it's an issue. So we have to bring that up, right? If you have responsibilities, those responsibilities will demand that there's days that you don't practice, right? Even if it's not your wedding, if it's your brother's wedding, or your daughter's wedding, or your son's wedding, don't tell me you're going to practice on that day. What's wrong with you? Okay? You see what I'm saying? Life has to come first. But over and above that, I actually don't believe physically. Physically, I don't believe in practicing every day anyway. It's not good for the chops. Of course, that depends on what kind of embouchure you have. But if you play on a muscular embouchure, it's not good for your chops to play every day. Okay? Cardo says, thanks a lot for the information about high range. It is very clear. Would I lose some endurance by taking a couple days off? No. So here's what happens. Let me tell you about this. Because you said you overdid it. What happens when you overdo it is you get swelling in the lips and the swelling makes it easier to play, but that's misleading, okay? That's misleading. If you did overdo it and you had a great range that day, do not expect your range to be that good after a day off. But that wasn't real range, okay? That was the result of swelling in your lips. Now, there are people that play that way on purpose, and if you want to be one of those, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's how Clifford Brown played. If you want to play just like Clifford Brown, that's how you're going to do it. It's hard that way. I think it's a lot harder to play that way than it is the way I teach, because the reason it's so hard is because you have to manage that swelling. That's not an easy thing to do. And by the way, what I just said about not taking a day off does not apply to somebody who's playing with swelling. If you need that swelling to play high or to have endurance, you must play every day, because the swelling will go away on the day that you don't practice. And your range will go down. And your endurance will go down. I hope that makes sense. So the problem with overdoing it, here's another thing that the reason why it's so hard to play this way. Not only do you have to practice every day, you have to practice exactly the same way every day. If you want success from that kind of trumpet playing, from that kind of embouchure, you need to practice the same exercises at the same time for the same length of time every day. Because this is not about muscles, this is about the swelling in your lips. Okay? So yeah, that's the thing. Now I believe that you have a lot more ability. You have a lot more what's the word for it? Potential. There it is, potential. You have a lot more potential playing on what I call a muscular embouchure than you do playing on a swelling embouchure. I used to play on a swelling embouchure. That's how I used to play. I changed in 1985. But yes, I used to play on a swelling embouchure, and it's a very difficult way. You know that saying, there's famous trumpet players who have said, sometimes the trumpet wins, sometimes I win. When you play on a muscular trumpet, a muscular embouchure, it doesn't work like that. Okay? That's for the people who rely on the swelling. People who rely on the swelling are going to have good days and bad days, because it's so hard to control that swelling. And there's other stuff that goes with that, by the way. People who do who play on swelling should not do pedal tones. Do not do pedal tones. You will ruin your playing, at least temporarily. The whole point of playing that way is to manage the swelling. The pedal tones make the swelling go away, and then you're going to be in trouble. Okay. All right. Cardo says, I would definitely check out that One Range book. Good. I think I've seen it on Amazon. Yes, it is on Amazon. We've been selling a bunch of those lately. I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy about that. The last time I checked, so I've written now dozens of books, right? And when I look at the stats, it says one range, one range, one range, one range, one range, one range. Then the hymn duet book, and then one range, daily routines, one range. So I'm real happy with that. That book is, and you know what? The thing is, that book is helping people. That book is helping people. I'm very, very excited about that. Thank you, Sean. He says he puts the 100 thing on there. Raimo says, thank you, Eddie. Goodbye, folks. Thank you for joining us, Raimo. We are out of time. Let me just answer Sean's question and we'll move on. I'm assuming, this is Sean Burton, I'm assuming that there are people who are naturally high players. I saw a video of an 11-year-old playing a Super C. So I don't see that's naturally, okay, so I've struggled with that concept of natural because I'm not natural, and I know I'm not natural, but I always knew I was capable. And there were people who told me when I was younger that that I wasn't going to be able to do this, right? It never bothered me, right? People told me there have been naysayers my whole life, right? There have been naysayers saying you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. Why does it not bother me? Because I know better. I knew better back then. I know better now. It doesn't matter what you tell me I can't do it. I actually happen to know, even though you don't have evidence of it, I know the truth. So, so that whole thing about natural, I really don't like that word. There are people who have what I would call a natural inclination. And what I believe happens is that there are a lot of times that people do not get their minds screwed up. And they just pick up the instrument and just play. And things just happen naturally, but naturally in a sense that nobody screwed up their head. That's what I think. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, it's not always the educators that screw people's heads up. Sometimes it's we ourselves screwing our own heads up. Okay? All right, guys. Gabriel says, thanks, Eddie, and have a nice weekend. Goodbye, friends. So, yeah, it's nice to hang out with you guys again. This was a good one. They're always good. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you guys next week. And have a great week. God bless you. And see you next time.